Good morning, Web3. This is the Pyreswap show. How are you today? Good morning. Good morning, Zonic. Good morning, Johnny Crypt. We've got a very, very exciting stream for you today. Phenomenal news. The Fear and Greed Index is arguably 50% higher towards greed than it was yesterday. Alternative.me's Fear and Greed Index was as low as 17 yesterday. This was, I guess, arguably the Great Depression moment in crypto, if you will. I find it interesting that fear and greed kind of lags recent events as opposed to, I guess, staying abreast of new ones. But the fact that you can rebound as much as 50% in a single day of fear and greed should arguably be a bit bullish, in just my humble opinion. I want to thank our sponsors, Pocket, for being Pyreswap's partners. Pocket is a proud sponsor of the Pyreswap show, along with the RPC provider for Pyreswap, the DApp. Good morning, Dr. Mac. Good morning, Hustle. Good morning, Johnny Crypt. And we're not streaming to Discord. Yeah, no worries. Anyways, yes, good morning, everyone. Additionally, there's some stuff that I want to talk about today, and the stuff that I want to keep talking about is real yield and why it's important. I want to talk about also the threshing floor. This is called the Pythian threshing floor. Real yield being important is critical because it actually is going to be the driving force in the evolution of decentralized finance. In order for decentralized finance to really gain its footing and kind of mature and perhaps threaten the modern world of banking, there has to be fundamentally sound investment vehicles that are not just effectively pumping and dumping on the guy behind you. Real yield as well is very, very critical because it is a type of yield that is not just based on endless stimulus. You can look at, when you think about real yield versus fake yield, you can think about real yield being, if you owned a piece of farmland and you were growing carrots, the amount of carrots that you're getting from this farm every year and that you sell for is the yield on the property, right? So if you can own a rental property as well. If you own an apartment building and you rent it out to a tenant, the amount of money you're making annually as a percentage on the cost of the property itself, that is your yield percentage and is a real yield. The opposite of this would be a fake yield, meaning you're debasing the supply and then effectively the profit is seigniorage. Things that are kind of more like fake yield are kind of when you see stimulus events. So during COVID, a lot of countries were doing stimulus cash giveaways, and this is actually fake yield. They were in fact just debasing their currency supply. We are arguably doing the same thing in our Genesis event, and then just giving them out to people to kind of stimulate the economy. We do that as well for marketing purposes, but generally we look at it that taking the Keynesian approach, we are in fact going to stimulate our economy to the point of growth by attracting a new user base that we will retain. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Additionally, I want to talk a lot today about the creation of real value inside Web3 that isn't just related to capturing financial profit. And I want to be clear that there's things that people pay for in Web3 with these actual crypto tokens that is not exactly involved just pumping and dumping on the guy behind them. It's really, really important to understand how to create economic value that isn't just tied to the price of a token, but rather tied to the price of its utility. And I will be doing some whiteboarding on that very soon. I want to take a moment to also address any new good mornings to address. Let's see. We have some new ones. We have some old ones. I want to say good morning to everybody who is responding to me on Twitter as well. Good morning, James. Good morning, Zero Kex. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Good Project. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. For those of you following on Twitter, we encourage you to join our Discord. You can in fact win cash prizes by attending the AVAX Talk Twitter space sponsored by Pyreswap, and you can win up to $30 of Pyre AVAX, which you can then learn active staking with. You can play with house money to learn active staking, the revolutionary new DeFi primitive brought to you exclusively by Pyreswap. So does anyone have any questions before I begin? Fantastic. I do see some typing. Okay. So let me make sure I'm gonna wheel this whiteboard in, and we're gonna compensate for glare if we have to. Let's make it look just like that. That's perfect. Yep, you can frame it in. Fantastic. Shout out to this knight figurine, which is really, I think, bringing together the foreground of our set. This knight figurine, for those of you if you don't know, has been in my family for decades. Yes, it is a real knight figurine from a European country that I visited when I was 8 years old. Yep. And it has, it was on a bookshelf for many years in my mother's house. And, you know, I decided that I was going to make it part of the set for this show because of our fantasy fiction theme. And now it has become a priceless collectible that, you know, without it, this show would not be made possible. So today I'm going to talk to you about some proprietary stuff because I want to talk specifically about the way value can be created in Web3. And if you guys can't see the marker on this whiteboard, please speak up. What looks like legibility to me might not be legibility to you. Whether it's my handwriting being too skinny or being too sloppy, I encourage you to communicate with me. And I also encourage you to say GM in chat as well, or on Twitter. When I talk about a threshing floor, we're going to call this Phithe's threshing floor. Now, I'm going to explain the title of this before we go any further. The first thing about this is that I always attribute myself. I don't do this out of like a sense of ego or a sense that like I need to make sure that I'm getting credit. I need to name these concepts after myself because there are a lot of narratives in DeFi and Web3. There are a lot of narratives in the DLT space that don't attribute their original author. They don't attribute their original author. And because of this, when these things fall to the wayside or are disproved or are perhaps reclassified in their importance or significance, they don't continue to look at the author of this concept. We don't do things like that in the real world. For instance, there's 2 temperature scales that are used most commonly throughout the world. Examples would be Fahrenheit and Celsius. Now, if you guys aren't aware of this, Fahrenheit and Celsius were actual human beings. Daniel Fahrenheit and Nils Celsius. They were 2 guys from which these scales were named after. It's important to keep the names of people on scales because the usefulness of these scales also accompanies the fact of the impact of the person who founded it. I'm not going to spend the rest of this Pyreswap show talking about the difference between Daniel Fahrenheit and Nils Celsius, but I will say this. Daniel Fahrenheit is the father of thermometry, who has literally contributed more to thermometry by himself than all other contributors to thermometry since his time. And he lived several centuries ago. Kelvin, I mean, that was useful for, I guess, space travel and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you to everybody asking about the Kelvin scale. Yes, there's always somebody. Always somebody has to ask about Kelvin. Yeah, and I mean, to compare against Celsius, Celsius didn't even work with temperature. He literally just thought about doing a 0 to 100 scale, and when he first created it, 100 was the freezing point, and then 0 was the boiling point. So literally somebody else flipped it around and be like, hey, why don't we make the hotter one the larger one? And they just reversed it, and they still called it Celsius, and that's literally the entirety of his contribution to thermometry. Daniel Fahrenheit invented the mercury thermometer. He invented other types of thermometers too. He was literally a contributing member of the Hansa League, and he literally, solved weather forecasting problems for what probably was billions of dollars of merchant travel through the North Sea and the the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. So I named this Phithe's threshing floor. The reason being, there's lots of concepts in DeFi. Specifically, I'll name 2 of them. Minor extractable value, known as MEV, and the other one is impermanent loss. Neither one of these concepts attribute their original founders. And because of such, they don't take into account the impact of the concept's author. So, For instance, in impermanent loss, if you guys aren't aware, impermanent loss was popularized by a DEX known as Bancor. Are you guys heard of Bancor? And by the way, can you guys read the whiteboard? Can you guys read it? I'm gonna actually spell out this project. Bancor. Can you guys read that? Fantastic, fantastic. So Bancor started off as a DEX. It started off as an Ethereum DEX, and it raised over 9 figures in venture capital. And it raised over nine figures in venture capital based over it claiming to solve a problem that other DEXs had, and that DEX was known as I.L. Who here can tell me what IL stands for? Can anyone tell me? Class? The professor is asking a question. Does anyone know what IL stands for? Goodness gracious. You know, there's been some commentary that this time slot is not bearing as much yield as other time slots. And it might be the case that we change the time that we do the Wednesday stream, you guys. We might make it something closer to the afternoon of North America. And yeah, more on that later. Thank you so much, Pyre Producer. Yes, impermanent loss. Yes, ZeroKex, Pyre Producer got it correctly. Impermanent loss. And no, I didn't actually give him the answer, but he might have Googled it. Who knows? Anyways, Bancor claimed to solve impermanent loss. And what they were going to do is they were just going to issue their token to liquidity providers. Does that make sense? Literally, they were just going to give their... Literally, they kind of invented the idea of the farm. Does that make sense? Like, they were going to give out BNC or whatever I don't remember their token to effectively compensate for impermanent loss. However, they weren't able to actually solve this impermanent loss, and the fact of the matter is their token crashed as well. Later on, they suffered an exploit where 8 figures of capital was compromised. Bancor hardly even functions as a DEX anymore. I want to say they're not even in the top 50 dApps on Ethereum, and on top of the fact that they are not trading today at what they were trading 3 years ago, or even in their first year. They're trading at a lower rate. Bancor was the one that popularized this term, and because impermanent loss sounded scary and not many people understood it, it spread like wildfire. Additionally, you know who was spreading the meme and the ideology of impermanent loss? Centralized exchanges. Coinbase, Binance, you name it. Your favorite centralized exchange was literally posting tutorial videos about impermanent loss and its risks. Why do you think that centralized exchanges were posting videos that highlighted the risks of impermanent loss? Because they don't want decentralized exchanges competing with them. Does that make sense? So if impermanent loss is a risk, how come these gigantic centralized exchanges have zero problem being liquidity providers? Like, nobody really thought that through. Like, if you're literally looking on a DEX website and in their tutorial section, they have a video highlighting the risks of impermanent loss, doesn't it sound crazy? That would be like going to that would be like if you went to a military recruiting office or whatever, and like they were just telling you all the risks about joining the military. I don't know how to describe it. Like that's so ridiculous. Or like if you went to a restaurant and like on the menu they just give you a warning, don't open your own restaurant. You know what I mean? Like that's literally what it is. Like if you went to eat at a fucking restaurant and at the top of the menu there was this, hey, by the way, don't open your own restaurant. Opening your own restaurant has risks. And I don't think anybody else like conceptually connected this together. Bancor, it popularized this boogeyman called impermanent loss, and then it failed at its own job. Does that make sense? So when somebody does this, you should call into question the brain that popularized the idea. Does that make sense to you guys? Like if somebody creates a concept and they say that hey, my business model solves this problem, and then they even fail at doing their general job, you might want to call into question their analysis of the problem as well. Impermanent loss, which is also known as divergent loss, or what I would call cross-lambda coefficient in adult finance, it is a real thing. But the fact of the matter is it can be mitigated and offset and even eliminated completely if you understand the mechanisms of liquidity deployment. More on that later. That is a topic for another time, but I'm just explaining why I say that this is Phithe's threshing floor. Because if, God forbid, one of my projects, possibly Pyreswap, in the future is proven to not work, which remains to be seen, so far it works, then every single one of my underlying concepts should arguably be scrutinized. Should it not? If Phithe is going to go around saying he's one of the best economists in all of Web3, and then his DApp has so much fundamental theoretics underlying it, if my DApp isn't able to do what it claims it does, then clearly my underlying concept should all be called into scrutiny. Nobody does this in Web3 because, by the way, can you zoom in on me? I want to get some zoom in for dramatic effect here. Nobody in Web3 knows what they're talking about. Thanks. That's all I wanted. Yeah, we can turn that into a GIF later. Man, thank you guys so much for hanging out here on this Wednesday morning. So when we talk about Phithe's threshing floor, I'm going to literally explain to you how value is created by, in fact, dividing. We literally multiply value by dividing. This is kind of a difficult concept because when we create value, we're not creating it in the same lateral with which we're dividing. It's from us creating the option of two different things that we create new value, which is in fact the value of the choice. Does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense, I want you guys to consider a scenario. Consider an ice cream kiosk. We'll say an ice cream truck, actually, for people who might not understand what I'm talking about. And we'll talk about ice cream trucks. And then we'll say 3 of them. Number 1 offers vanilla. Number 2 offers chocolate. And number 3 offers vanilla and chocolate. So, I want you guys to think about this, and I want you guys to think about quantification in what the value that these 3 ice cream trucks provide. The value with which they provide. And this is something that is not really conceptually understood, and I should honestly call this Phithe's ice cream trucks, actually. Yeah, here, I'm just going to write that down too. Phithe's ice cream trucks, okay? Truck 1 offers vanilla. Truck 2 offers chocolate. Truck 3 offers vanilla and or chocolate. So when we think about what are the values, meaning what can you exchange money for here at Truck 1? How many things can you offer? Like what does Truck 1 offer you? How many things does Truck 1 offer you? Truck 1 offers 1 thing. Does that make sense? And I'm gonna look at my other chats. Truck 1 offers 1 thing. Truck 2, it also offers 1 thing. What do you guys think Truck 3 offers? Oh wow, 0x. Brilliance. Brilliance. How did that happen? How did that happen? You know what? 0x, I'll tell you this. It can be argued that Truck 3 offers 4 things. It can be argued that Truck 3 offers 4 things. How is that possible? How is that possible? Is it possible that offer and value creation is exponential? How is that possible? Vanilla offers 1 thing. And what is that 1 thing? Yeah, I'm gonna change the color of marker to let's see, something like this. Or maybe I'll do the dark blue. The 1 thing that Truck 1 offers is vanilla. The 1 thing that Truck 2 offers is chocolate. Truck 3 offers vanilla, chocolate. Then it offers combination. Then it offers the option. So what I mean to say here is that not only can you, in theory, get both of the things, but you can also get either of the things as well. So if you're familiar with Boolean logic, you have the concept of and or. Well, Truck 3 has vanilla, it has chocolate, it has vanilla and chocolate, or it has vanilla or chocolate. These are 4 separate values that Truck 3 offers that Truck 1 and Truck 2 do not. The choice, the fact that you could go to this truck and the fact that they would have options, that increases the value of this truck in their user base's mind, in their consumer base's mind. Does that make sense? Like, Baskin-Robbins is a popular American franchise for ice cream. And they're popular because of, again, they offer 31 flavors. If you're not familiar with Baskin-Robbins, I mean, you can look that up on your own. But the fact of the matter is, they marketed with the fact that they have 31 flavors because they were able to lure people in with options. The fact that people could try new things, could try new combinations, could experiment. These were all values that were added in the customer's mind by Baskin-Robbins providing this amount of versatility in their business model. Does that make sense to everybody who understands Phithe's ice cream trucks? Does that make sense? It's almost like this is exponential. It's almost like 1 squared equals 1, 2, well, this is also 1 squared equals 1, but 2 squared equals 4. Interesting. 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 Does anybody have any questions about Phithe's ice cream trucks? I'm going to erase it from the board. You do have questions? Sorry, there is a question? I don't, I don't know why audio would not be coming through. I have not heard of any other audio problems. Yeah, and I believe it shows that we're good on Discord as well, and the other platforms. Okay, I'm erasing Phithe's ice cream trucks. If nobody has any other questions. The reason I'm talking about Phithe's ice cream trucks is because it is a underlying concept that needs to be understood for Phithe's threshing floor. Do you hear Discord? You do not?
And I don't see it flashing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just Discord.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, we have solved the Discord audio. Okay, in the future, if you guys become aware that we have an audio problem, it will be extremely appreciated if you could let me know. I was under the impression we were clean on Anyways, so for Phithe's threshing floor, I need you guys to understand that you can in fact create value by dividing, by rather giving people an option. Because when you give people options, you're in fact increasing their freedom. Does that make sense? People generally like to have freedom because they like to have control. So when we talk about Phithe's threshing floor, I'm going to talk about 6 different things that can be used to create non-zero sum value. And in order to start with this, I want you guys to understand what a threshing floor is. Who here can actually tell me what a threshing floor is? Teaching us how to cheat again? I do not know what this gentleman refers to. Oh, goodness gracious. You know, when I really start getting passionate about teaching something, the time just blurs by. Yeah, thank you, Zonic. Yeah, I just noticed that myself. I should probably get like an actual API for the epoch system in my house, so I can actually like see that countdown. Yeah, right there, right in the header. I need it actually in my eyeball. That's probably what I need. You know what I mean? I just need it like neuralinked right into my head. Okay, do a total of 0 people know what a threshing floor is? Okay, threshing floor was how they actually processed grain back before technology was a thing. So the way they would do this, in fact, they still actually do it in some places. Literally, for grain to be processed, you actually have to separate wheat from the chaff. Have you ever heard of that? You separate wheat from the chaff. And the way they do this is by literally stacking wheat up on a platform that they effectively let animals like a donkey or ox literally move around the column, dragging a sled behind them, dragging a weighted sled behind them. This weighted sled literally crushes the wheat grain, and what that does is it separates the wheat from the chaff, which effectively is the chaff is what breaks apart from the grain. Chaff can really be used only for composting and maybe some animal feed, but as far as humans go, we can only really use wheat. So the fact of the matter is, threshing is literally a process. Threshing is like a refinement process, and the fact of the matter is, when you thresh, you're starting off with, I guess, what you would call like the crop, and you're splitting it into chaff and I guess the actual grain, which I guess would probably be the bran. I need to review my vocabulary for plant biology. But through the threshing floor, you are creating value because the chaff and the grain, once they are separated, they can now be purposed to be more effective than when they are combined. Does that make sense to everybody? Threshing is something that people have been doing for thousands of years. Any questions about that? Everyone still with me? Okay. So when we talk about Phithe's threshing floor, we talk about things that where you can create divisions, in Web3 to create non-zero sum value. Meaning you can create things that people want on blockchain that doesn't just involve buying and selling for a direct financial profit, which arguably they're measuring in dollars. So Phithe's threshing floor, there is a beginner version and an advanced version, and I will start with the beginner version, and I will start with just what I consider the six teeth of Phithe's threshing floor. I call them teeth because on a threshing sled, it doesn't have a smooth. The sled doesn't have a smooth underside. It has these teeth, these kind of like these ridges that it creates them, which are used as pressure points to crush the crop, separating it into wheat and chaff. I'm going to write that up here as well. Six teeth. I'm going to put that in quotes. Can you guys read 6 teeth? Is that legible to you guys? Okay. For the 6 teeth, I'm going to actually draw 6 circles in, I guess, a hexagram type of configuration. Let me see. Is that visible? Yep, it's visible. Okay. So we have these 6 circles. Can everybody see these 6 circles? In fact, this marker works better than the black marker as far as visibility goes. Everybody has good visibility. I missed the game. I literally just missed it. Okay, yeah, sorry. Once I actually go into professor mode, I cannot. I will literally just do this until I run out of steam or until I run everyone else out of steam. And there are people that will tell you that's 100% true. But anyways, okay, the visibility on the 6 circles. I'm now going to label these circles, and I might use this color for that. The first one here at the top, cardinally, which I think is always the easiest one to understand, is the time value of money. And I'm going to write it like this. TVOM. TVOM, let me see, is that? Let me verify that that's legible. Nah, I'm going to make a different marker for this. Now, green might not be a winner. Yeah. Yeah, if I had a darker green, I don't know. Let's see. This is a brown. Yeah, that one's not bad. Okay. TVOM. Can everyone read TVOM? Wow, yeah. Shout out to Why So Cynical, who just broke 200,000 for his Pyre Phantom position in the IWV and then got more than 1% yield just now in the last couple minutes. 1% in a few minutes with a gigantic bag, by the way. Thank you. Jabri, it's okay. By the way, I appreciate that a lot, T. DeBangwa. And for those of you bragging about how much yield you're making with active staking, we would love to see those screenshots posted on Twitter with the Pyreswap page tagged in the caption. We will retweet every single screenshot where you show off your real yield from active staking. Does anyone have any questions about that? If you want a free retweet from a 10,000 follower account, all you gotta do is post that screenshot and tag the Pyreswap account. T. DeBangwa, you know what? There's always tomorrow. Yeah, exactly, Zonic. Exactly. Well, Zonic, I have great news for you. There's always Avalanche. You can always just play on Avalanche. Yep. Zonic, all you gotta do is play on Avalanche. That's where all the money's at right now. Yeah, all you gotta do is stop showing favoritism to other chains. If you play on Avalanche, easy money. Yeah, Zonic, and that whale is you. Like, I mean, stop pretending. Yeah, you've been investing in this project for 18 months. Yet there is no possible way that you're not, like, you're pretending that Why So Cynical. Okay, I'm not even talking about this. Okay, everybody can read TVOM, yeah? Is that legible? For those of you not reading the Discord chat, we have a member named Zonic who is pretending that whales are bullying him, but he is in fact one of the oldest supporters of this project. So like I refuse to believe that he is not in fact a whale, if that makes sense. I agree with that, Cynical. TVOM, everyone can read it? Okay, TVOM stands for time value of money. For those of you who don't understand the time value of money, it is the most basic principle involving borrowing and lending, and the concept of interest as well. The time value of money is also extremely important in Web3 because people don't just want to effectively get rich with crypto, they want to get rich rapidly. It's not just the fact that you can 10x your money in crypto, it's the fact that you can 10x your money in under a week. Like that right there appeals to the most, I guess, the most serotonin and dopamine gambler brain that you see kind of prevalent across the entire Web3 user base. It's the fact that the money can also come quick or slow. There are other ways that you can also make tons of money, but the fact that crypto shows it off much more than other industries causes this to be a, I guess you could say, sought after utopian return. The time value of money is actually opposite. These 6 teeth are opposite each other on Phithe's threshing floor. The time value of money is also the money value of time. And the time value of money and the money value of time are 2 separate values that you can in fact split between each other to create non-zero sum value creation. One of the ways where you can benefit from the time value of money in DeFi is to be a liquidity provider, because you can in fact make passive real yield by providing liquidity in the short term. When you provide liquidity in the short term, you do run the risk of experiencing impermanent loss. But the fact of the matter is that over time, impermanent loss, if you are in fact deployed between coins that aren't garbage, all losses, or quote unquote, all contractions, or anything less than the optimal yield, will always be offset by what you make in swap fees. When you collect swap fees, you're actually collecting fees in 2 tokens, not just 1. Being in the impermanent loss, being a liquidity provider puts you in the perfect horizontal position, which actually is the one that seems to benefit the most long term. People who really figure their minds around being liquidity providers tend to do really, really well in Web3, as long as they're not being liquidity providers for trash tokens or trash projects. More on that later. So does everyone understand the time value of money and the money value of time? The money value of time is things like when you can pay for priority. Does that make sense? For those of you who maybe travel frequently by airplane, you can actually sign up for something called TSA PreCheck, which is kind of weird that it's a government service, and you can effectively cut the line when it comes to air travel. Does that make sense? Anytime you can pay to cut the line, or you can pay to get faster service, that is in fact the money value of time. The time value of money applies to more like lending, but it also applies to being a liquidity provider. You're in the horizontal position where you end up letting random people use your money for liquidity. They trade, they win some, they lose some, but in the long run, you'll always be making more money back through swap fees. This position requires a higher degree of patience than the average Web3 user has, which is why you see the majority of people not understanding liquidity provision, especially due to the IL boogeyman. Anyways, does everyone understand time value of money and money value of time? Does anyone have any questions about these 2 teeth of Phithe's threshing floor? So right here, this is 2 ways. This is 2 ways where value can be created in Web3. If you don't understand money value of time, understand that Pyreswap has an epoch system. And this epoch system arguably is something done there to actually create difficulty for the user base. This epoch system is not there to effectively cater to every whim of the user base. The epoch system is there to put everyone on a level playing field and kind of equalize things to kind of create the scarcity for the opportunities involved with active staking, as well as all of our upcoming mechanisms and utilities in later phases of Pyreswap. You know what, Maddie? I think you could argue that that is the case. But at the same time, Maddie, I think that the IWV definitely appeals to this, because anybody who doesn't want to stake for too long, they will love the IWV. Does that make sense? So Maddie, you have to think about passive staking, and passive staking, which is also kind of similar to LPing, it also involves leaving money kind of in a configuration for a long period of time for you to in fact make that money back. If, for instance, if you buy a piece of real estate and rent it out, this is also the time value of money, because every month or year that you have it rented is paying off your mortgage, and in theory, the property of your house should also be going up anyway, because that's what real estate tends to do. If that makes sense. So Maddie, I want you to understand that that these 6 teeth right here, they don't necessarily apply just to Pyreswap, but I'm actually identifying the way they can apply to Web3 and DeFi as a whole. And I know that these 6 circles look very much like the overview of opportunities diagram. If you guys are aware of the overview of opportunities diagram, it does look like that same configuration, kind of like a snowflake, but it is not the same diagram. Oh, and by the way, I'm wearing my Good Afternoon Jerome Powell t-shirt. Do you guys see? Can you guys see that it's Jerome Powell? You guys see it says Good Afternoon? Okay. It is not the afternoon where I am today, but it will be eventually. So I am wearing this t-shirt speculatively on the fact that there eventually will be afternoon, and then its phrasing will apply. Does that make sense? That's very degen of me. I'm front running everybody else on the afternoon. Do you guys get it?
Subconsciously switching the schedules.
I'm shifting paradigms. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm making them ready for an afternoon Wednesday show. You know, the next shirt I have coming, Javery, is the pink Wojak t-shirt. More on that later. Yeah. I think that's a great shirt to wear on the high fear days. Anyways, time value of money and money value of time. And what time are we at now? Okay, we're good. Additionally, there's 2 other things There's actually one other thing that I'm going to talk about because this one applies a lot to Pyreswap. I'm going to actually look at that camera now. Okay. Camera 2? I mean, you can freestyle. Okay, I'm going to now label another one. And we're going to use this one here, and we're going to call it IVOM. And we're going to call this N. Sorry, that's not an M. We're going to call this MVOI. Who here can take a guess at what MVOI stands for or IVOM stands for? Thanks, Javery. Have a great rest of your day. Oh, by the way, I should do another round of good mornings because I'm assuming my audience is bigger now. Good morning, Alessio. Good morning, Maddie. Good morning to everybody who's retweeting us on Twitter, by the way. That's very much appreciated. You know what? We have a decent viewing on Twitter today, actually. Yeah, a bit higher viewer count than we did yesterday in the other time slot. Okay, so MVOI and IVOM. Can everybody take a guess? And by all means, feel free to reply your guess to the Twitter thread below this post. You can also DM the page directly. Anyone has a guess? I do like to kind of have some information. Oh wow, Zonic, it's almost like you've heard this before. Information. IVOM, we mean the information value of money. And then here we mean the money value of information. By money value of information, I want you guys to understand something. Professor Phithe's Elastic Supply Dashboard is a perfect example of the money value of information. And by the money value of information, I want you guys to understand, in order to get up-to-date data from the PPESD, it has to experience transpiration epoch transactions. Does that make sense? So there has to be somebody paying for the gas on Pyreswap or on the other websites where PPESD is implemented in order for the dashboard to be up to date. So that dashboard loses integrity if people are not willing to pay for the epoch transpiration transaction. Does that make sense? The money value of information, because getting that information is not for free. That information is deluxe information, even if it's actually extremely affordable. Even if getting this information up to date costs less than $1 a day, it is not free information. Does that make sense? And because it is not free information, it is arguably more valuable than free information. Have you ever heard that free advice is cheap advice? You ever heard that before? Fantastic. Information value of money. Now, who here can give me a good example of this? I bet you look at it every day. Who here can give me an example of where you can find the information value of money in Web3? In Web3. Brilliant, Pyre producer. Brilliant. Exactly that. What are you watching when you look at sites like Dex Screener and Dex Tools? What are you guys watching? Like, what is like everything based down to? You're looking at things like liquidity, volume, market cap, and don't forget price and price action. In fact, you're actually looking at money over time information. When you look at a price chart, you're looking at change in money over time. All the candlesticks are really just intervals of time. And you're looking at the change of money over time when you're looking at a price chart. Yes, exactly, Maddie. Yet all of those things, Zonic, all those things. All of those data points is the information value of money. People look at a project, they look at the price chart, they look at the market cap, they look at the amount of liquidity. Does that make sense? Do I believe that their analysis is often sound? I look at a lot of products in Web3 and I think it's not. I think that a lot of stuff that people think are the right move are just extremely ridiculous standards to have for analysis, but I'm not here to judge other projects as much as try to improve fundamental analysis across Web3 as a whole. Does anyone have any questions about IVOM and MVOI? Does anyone have any questions? Does everybody understand MVOI and IVOM? If you think about it, you know, there's also, we'll talk about this in a second actually. I want to get some actual, I'll give us literally 10 more seconds to see if somebody has a question or a comment. I'm surprised that you guys understand these so well, but I think that most of you guys that have been coming to the Pyreswap show for weeks and or months have slowly started to grow the synapses in my brain that are now in yours. The more and more I talk about my ideas, I think a lot of people really like the feeling they get in their brain when I teach this stuff. We have some typing going on in this channel. Now we'll wait. I hope everyone's having a great day today. Good morning. And of course, the Pyreswap show is brought to you by the Pocket Network, POKT.network, the best and fastest and greatest RPC service you can get throughout the entirety of Web3. Indeed, Maddie, indeed. Okay, you guys ready for the number 5 and number 6? These ones should be really easy to guess. Interesting, interesting, interesting. TVOI and then IVOT. I've kind of already given away what these are, and you should, if you're like a good logical conclusion guy, you already know what these stand for. Does anybody want to tell us? Does anyone in class want to tell us what these stand for? Yep. Information value of time, by the way. Of time. Not over, but of time. Exactly, Maddie. Yeah. OF. But yes. But yes. Time value of information. So when we talk about time value of information, I want you guys to consider the difference between watching a price chart update in real time or looking at the 5-year history. Does that make sense? Would you guys agree that price action from 5 years ago is not as actionable as price action in the last week? Would you guys agree that the more recent price action tends to be, in your brain, considered to be more valuable? Sometimes you can look at later history. Sometimes that does matter, for sure. But generally speaking, information that's more recent tends to be more valuable because it's been looked at by less people. The opportunities that this information can provide are not yet completely exploited and or saturated. Does that make sense to everyone? You're not wrong there, Maddie, but yes, it is psychological. Maddie, I want you to know, all value is psychological. All of this is psychological. Yeah, it is contained in the human brain. Value is not really something that you see non-biological entities care about. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's great, yeah. Look at what we have now. We can now screen share the general chat. How amazing is that? You studied at the wrong uni. If it makes you feel better, I am a college dropout. I did not finish college at all. Yeah. Anyways, time value of information. Do you guys understand that? By the way, if you understand the concept of front running, would you guys understand? Let's think about this. Let's think about how there are certain policymakers in certain first world countries that they trade the stock market. And they trade the stock market based on information they may or may not know ahead of everyone else. Does it sound familiar? Are you guys seeing the breadcrumbs I'm leaving? Anybody? Has anybody ever heard of what I'm talking about? Someone's dropping a name, but I would never be so petty as to say it out loud. And definitely not in the bathroom in a mirror 3 times. How that goes? Yeah, I'm kidding. Information value of time, though. What is that? For information value of time, what you want to look at is what you want to look at like change over time. Does that make sense? When you look at information value of time, you can look at how fast things are moving. For instance, a lot of people, when they look at a price chart, they want to see not just the trend, but how frequently this trend has new data punched into it. Does that make sense? A chart with a lot of activity that's moving sideways is still more valuable than a chart with low activity that's moving sideways. Does that make sense? It's the amount of information you can get in an interval of time. Everyone understands that a candlestick is an interval of time, right? So if we're looking at a chart on the 15-minute interval, and every candlestick represents the open, high, low, and close in that 15 minutes, the more transactions you have in that 15 minutes, the more valuable that information is. Because the more things are happening, that particular window of time is giving you more information. Does everyone understand this? So the more information you can acquire in a short period of time is also a tooth of the Pythian threshing floor. I have no idea if Damian Webb is actually in this stream, but yes, the way to get a roll is you already have it. So I think you're good. Yeah, for those of you who aren't aware, right now, because we are a sponsor of AVAX Talk, you can in fact get up to $30 of Pyre AVAX just for completing 7 easy steps. We give this out to up to 15 people weekly, and this is done to evolve you into understanding active staking. If somebody could point this individual towards the AVAX Talk Prize channel, that would be much appreciated. Anyways, do you guys understand these 6 teeth? There's actually more and more. There's an advanced version which gets crazier. We start talking about things like entertainment value and control value and stuff, which are also things you can get inside Web3. An example of control value is like a governance token. Does that make sense to you guys? When you have a governance token, you have like a share of control. Does that make sense? Like voting rights, that's a control token. Entertainment is like, GameFi, or even just the idea that people watch certain YouTubers based not just on the information that they get in a period of time, but also the entertainment they get in a period of time. Does that make sense? So if you want to think about like who are the most successful YouTubers, they offer a lot of information value of time and entertainment value of time packaged into the same video. Does that make sense to you guys? You got to be a bit both. You got to be both educational and entertaining. Making sense? I'm not going to get into the advanced version, but from these 6 teeth, I consider these the most underlying teeth. It's from combining these teeth that you get the other 2 things. Does that make sense? I'm not going to get into that, but there's more things that humans value. I wrote a model about this, and wherever these things can be split up, these are things in Web3 that you can build economies around. Whether they are microeconomies or nano-economies. You can build utilities around. Because once you can kind of derive things to time value of information and information value of time, it's only so many connections you can make until you get to money. Does that make sense? Because if you understand that information has value and you understand that time has value, all you gotta do is go from here to get to money. Does that make sense? So this is effectively the way that you can design tokens that have things that would cause them to have price support. I hope that makes sense. Literally, all you gotta do when you go from the time value of information is to go there to get the money. All you gotta do from go to the information value of time is to go here to get the money. Does that make sense? The way this looks is like MVOT, and then you have the TVO. Like it looks kind of, well, I'm not gonna get into it, but I hope this makes sense. The time value of information value of time, and then we look at, yeah. I hope that makes sense. Like you can, in fact, create these economic systems where people are actually paying for things, even if those things are just there to help them make more money. Does that make sense? Because if they're paying for things to help them make more money, they arguably understand the time value of time and the money value of time. And all you can do, literally, is create these value bubbles in the derivative where you will effectively keep non-zero sum value growing, especially if you can combine them. If you guys remember the example before from Phithe's ice cream trucks, just by increasing the amount of value offerings, you can increase the amount of options, or should I say that just from increasing the amount of things that you offer, you create non-zero sum value because you offer new value in the exponential. I hope that makes sense. Because it's not just physical things that humans value. Like humans will pay money to go to a concert that they'll get blackout drunk at and then completely forget about. Does that make sense to you guys? Like they will in fact exchange money to do this. Millions of people do this every year. They literally take their money, they go buy a concert ticket for probably way more than they should, they go get trashed, they don't remember a goddamn thing, and then they will do it again in a month. Does that make sense? Yes, the value of choice as well. And zero kicks, that's why I call this the threshing floor, because we are in fact driving a cow catcher through these concepts of value. Because when you talk about the time value of money, you have to think about the trading of it. You have to think about like making the choice. All 6 of these are a choice. All 6 of these are a choice. Does that make sense? Because you can either choose it or you can choose against it. But from it being offered and from it having other things associated with it, you can in fact create non-zero sum value creation. In fact, all of these derivative values will also scale exponentially as you increase your user base. I wonder, in Pyreswap's 6-phase roadmap, how many of these teeth are we going to implement? I wonder. Does anyone have any questions about Phithe's threshing floor? You probably do. I don't know if I'm going to keep teaching it for free, money value of information and all. But for those of you who don't know, I am planning to effectively launch a economics, tokenomics, and Ponzinomics e-course eventually, in which case my design principles, one of which is Phithe's threshing floor, is gone into extremely in depth. I don't think I can get into more of it in under an hour, and we're just about running out of time. So I want to thank everyone for showing up to the Pyreswap show today. If this is your first time, you guys are encouraged to come to our Discord server. You can learn a lot more about Pyreswap as a project and everything that it offers to its user base. Pyreswap has 6 different ways of making money just in phase 1 of its roadmap, which is the phase we're in right now. I don't think a single one of you watching me right now can name a project where there is more than 6 ways to make money. 6 distinct and unique ways to make money. Pyreswap is not just a crypto project. It is a crypto economy inside the crypto economy. Pyreswap is not susceptible to the pains of the summer-winter cycle like other dApps are. Instead of having summer and winter, it can effectively have big summer and little summer. It is susceptible to the swings of the dollar, but there is so many other derivative values that are capturable within Pyreswap that it is still extremely profitable during downtrend days, or should I say large fear days. Anyways, let's see. Do I have any comments here? I'm looking. We've got 120 viewers on Twitter. Not bad for a Wednesday. I'll make this announcement quick. We are going to consider variegating the times we do the Pyreswap show. So, for instance, today I did not even play the incantation. Because we do so many shows where I'm not playing the incantation, we are going to variegate the times that we do this show. We're going to increase the variety of content we introduce. So for today, I only taught theoretics on a whiteboard. We might move this slot, let's say 8 hours into the future on a Wednesday. We might be doing it instead of it being, whatever time we started, think about maybe 7 hours or 8 hours into the future. I haven't determined the exact times yet, but we might variegate some of the times of these shows. We want to get larger audiences in different time zones in different continents. Of course, we do appreciate our North American and European communities. We very, very much would like to have all 4 of our epochs to kind of have a more balanced user base. And we are, in fact, we're going to be streaming soon on a platform called Trovo, which is very big in places like Asia. Yeah, West Asia, North Asia, South Asia, and East Asia. The 4 corners of Asia. It's very popular in Asia. We're going to be including Trovo streaming to our platform package. And most importantly, I think that's great for building a community that has, I guess you could say, a variety of value adds, variety of philosophy. And the fact of the matter is, since Pyreswap is effectively, Pyreswap and the greater Pyreswap ecosystem effectively introduces new ways of banking, I feel like there's a lot of unexplored potential for this in countries that, let's say, might not have a very sophisticated grasp on banking. Countries that kind of go into economic crisis a little bit too frequently, I think they could benefit a lot from Pyreswap. There is a bit of a learning curve, but I am wholeheartedly committed to bringing hundreds of people across that curve. Anyways, a big shout out again to our sponsor and partner, Pocket. For those of you, again, please join our Discord. There is a phenomenal culture inside our Discord. Even on red candle days, our Discord does not get pessimistic and sad. Our Discord is bullish every day because even on red candle days, there are different ways to make money that you're not going to hear about on crypto Twitter. I'm sorry, but crypto Twitter does not really give you... very rarely do I see like solid information displayed on places like crypto Twitter. Most of the time, crypto Twitter looks a lot like what the internet looked like in the 90s. Do you guys remember? Yeah. Do you guys remember? Who here remembers what the internet looked like in the 1990s? Does anyone remember? Who remember? Okay. Maybe no one remembers. Oh well. Thanks. I remember. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the Pyreswap show. Tomorrow we will be in the same time slot, but possibly next week we'll be revising our schedule. Look for an announcement on that in the Pyreswap Discord and on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow and retweet. And come get your free money in the Pyreswap Discord. We're just giving away money. We're crazy like that. Goodbye.